This is the regular council meeting, Monday, April 25th, 2022. It is 6 o'clock. We're commencing the evening. And please remind everyone here, including our guest speakers, that this meeting is recorded via Zoom and is available for the public to observe now and then after the meeting. So I wanted to start today's meeting with some good news. And for those who haven't picked up the news on the regular media feed that came out on Friday, I just wanted to announce that the City of Trail has hired a new Chief Administrative Officer and Chief Financial Officer. His name is Colin McClure, and he has been recruited to do the dual role, and his employment will start in early to mid-June 2022. Colin is a certified public and chartered accountant. He comes from a diverse background of leadership, progressive management, and financial stewardship. He has worked for the last 11 years as the City of Nelson's Chief Financial Officer, and recently took on the dual role as Nelson's Deputy Chief Administrative Officer and Chief Financial Officer, while also providing financial services, expertise, and oversight to some of the smaller municipalities in the region. And prior to working in municipal government, Colin led the financial services management at Selkirk College as the Director of Finance. At the AKBLG this weekend that 3 councillors were at, Colin attended for a very short period of time and was able to say hi. But I really want to say how excited I am about this. When the news hit, people were just coming over and congratulating the City of Trail and saying what a great hire he was. And I really want to extend my thanks to, in particular, Mayor Dooley, who was absolutely gracious about this and extended, his congratulations to us as well and to Colin, and really feels that Colin is very deserving of this promotion. So thank you to everyone. And we are just very excited to have him come on board with us in June and work with our team. So welcome, Colin, and we look forward to working with you. The next item is the adoption of the minutes. There's 3 sets of minutes. There's the regular council meeting of March 28th, 2022. There's the Governance and Operations Committee meeting of April 19th, 2022, and the Governance and Operations Committee meeting of April 20th, 2022. And the recommendation is to adopt all those 3 sets of minutes as circulated. Do I have someone to make that motion?
So moved.
Councillor Butler. Do I have someone to second that motion? Councillor Santori, thank you. Is there any questions on this? Errors, omissions?
I think there's an error on 2-3 board, RDKB board representation. We have Councillor Kashoni moving, Gadafoni Robinson seconding the election of Colleen Jones, and we have Mayor Payson and Councillor Santori opposed. I've got it recorded that also Councillor Butler was opposed.
Actually, do you want to speak to that, Michelle? Because I'm also able to speak to that. We actually reviewed the video on that and spoke to Councillor Butler, and he did not oppose the nomination. When he said that, when he put up his hand, he was applauding, and it was just sometimes on Zoom there's a delayed response, so the minutes are correct as indicated.
So he did support that particular position now.
That's what I just indicated, and that's what Councillor Butler indicated to me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions on that or these minutes? Okay, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried, thank you. Next, we have a delegation, James Wadsworth and Seth Wright from BC Transit, and they are going to provide us an update on the Trail Transit Exchange development. So I will turn the floor over to James and Seth for an update.
Thank you very much. I just want to check that you can see my screen and it's the proper one, the Downtown Trail Transit Exchange.
Yes, we can, James.
All right. So presentation objectives. We just wanted to provide an update on planning and public engagement activities to date. And we're also coming tonight to see if we can seek council approval in principle of the concept. And this will allow us to continue to move forward with the East End Services Committee for their approval and then go to the federal government.
Just hang
I
on a
lost the
second,
sound.
James, you're clicking out there. You were good and then it faded.
This does happen sometimes with Zoom, unfortunately, so I apologize. So we're doing two things. We're going to just review the public engagement activities. And also we're asking for council's approval and principle of the concept, which will allow us to continue to move forward in advanced planning and work with the East End Services Committee to make an application for grant money for this project. So we'll just remind you that we did do a technical study. We brought 3 options forward that were all viable options. We presented those to both council and the East End Services Committee in the fall. And we received direction to go do engagement with stakeholders on the option, which is really where the existing transit exchange is at Cedar and Helena. Just a reminder that the reason we're doing this is to take advantage of the Investment Canada infrastructure program, which allows us to get the local government's share of funding down to 20%. Regularly, that's 50%. So there's a sale on, so we're going to try and take advantage. And again, reminder that we looked at a whole number of options and did a qualitative multiple account evaluation. We narrowed it down to 3. We brought those forward. Now we're working with the existing location and expanding it towards Selkirk College. So this is the concept that we brought to council. It's also the concept that we went and engaged the public on. Basically, that's what the slide is saying. We went out and did public engagement where we sent, I think, about every business or residents within 50 meters of the transit exchange. We sent them all a letter and invited one-on-one meetings with them to go over the design and to listen to what they had to say. We had 3 groups take us up on that offer. That'd be the Selkirk College, the theater, and also the Trail Community Action Team. This is, again, the design. We're looking at, this is the existing location, improving the sidewalk and adding shelters. Again, expanding it over to in front of the Selkirk College Theater. This is where we have a placeholder location for a public washroom as part of the design. And what we heard was that preserving this access area into the building on this side was very important to the theater, because they have trucks that come in here and bring in equipment. It's also where emergency services accesses the building on the lower floor. So we realized this is not the best location to be part of the transit exchange, having a bus zone here. So we, if we move forward with advancing this concept further, we would relocate this bus bay to potentially this green zone or around the back here, and have the bus wait over here and keep this area clear for on-street parking or a loading zone for theater access, which was very important. We also had some conversations with our operations group about washrooms, and we're in the process now that COVID, I guess the public health measures have been reduced now. We're reestablishing a contracted washroom in businesses on the block. So we have a few different options that we could use for washrooms for the operator. And I guess this is my washroom slide here. We know there's a desire for a public washroom, and so we've costed that into the transit exchange and into the concept. But we would we don't ourselves fund public washrooms, so the washrooms would have to be funded the local governments and maintained by the local governments. And Seth Wright has been working with Trail and the RDBK on this, and they've had preliminary conversations about how washrooms could be funded and maintained as part of the transit exchange here. So when we do a project, we have the ability to deliver a washroom as part of it, but we'll have to work with the local governments on how it's funded. And as I mentioned, we have found options for the transit operators to use washrooms off the street that we've contracted. In terms of the process, we're at the option where we think we have a preferred option that we would like to get approval in principle on. We've completed community engagement. And so if we receive that from both the City of Trail Council and the East End Services Committee, then we can go and do our work on obtaining the grant for the project. And once we have a grant, then we could get into the what we would call the detailed design and develop a plan to deliver the project. And in terms of funding, the funding on the local government side would be funded by the regional district. The city would not be responsible for the cost of the transit exchange. And it's likely they have the option to pay it as a lease fee over the life of the asset. And the other thing I'd like to mention this is we estimate right now that the cost of this project is between $900,000 and $1.1 million. And as I mentioned, our next steps would be after this presentation to Trail Council, if we feel we're ready to move forward, then we would go to the East End Services Committee for them to endorse the plan. And then we would move forward with sorting out a plan for the washrooms. And then we would move forward to the business case and hopefully a successful funding grant and then a project agreement to build the project. So that's the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Seth, did you want to add anything else? I know that James was clicking in and out a little bit, but I think most of it was audible. Do you want to just take the floor for a minute?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that back about a month ago, Deputy CAO McIsaac and Deputy CAO, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm right there, James Chandler from the Regional District and myself had a meeting and we discussed washrooms and we discussed possible cost sharing options. And as a sort of starting position for discussion, it was suggested that the Regional District offered a 50-50 cost share with the city, both for initial capital costs and for ongoing maintenance costs down the road.
Okay, thank you for that bit of information. Councillor Kashoni, do you have your hand up on this?
Yes, I did. Seth, I guess, and James, it's my understanding too, you see, when we passed a motion transferring $150,000 per year into the transit service, which was going to upgrade all of the bus shelters and pay for all of the costs of the downtown trail exchange. I think the motion, and I guess it's going to fall to Colleen Jones, Councillor Jones, to look at that particular motion and bring that motion back. Because when I made that motion, it was fairly specific, and I made it so that all costs associated with the downtown trail exchange would be covered. As it turns out anyways, Trail would be paying 40% of the cost anyways. So it's a matter of 10% difference, but nevertheless, that was the motion. Now, they may not interpret it that way, but that's the way I structured it. And once it's looked at the East End Committee, maybe there's a different opinion, because the money is continually flowing in at the rate of $150,000 a year, and that's how we're going to pay for the exchange. Okay, just to make you aware, and of course Colleen aware that she will have to be dealing with it. But it's a good start to see that they're looking at a 50-50 cost sharing already.
Okay, is there any other questions on this? No? Ms. McIsaac, just for process, so do we need a motion of approval at this point, like Mr. Wadsworth and had indicated? An approval in principle?
Yes, given that there were a number of options looked at, in order for BC Transit to go forward with further development of the plans, it is important for them to receive council's approval in principle of the improvements to the downtown exchange at its current location.
Okay, and do I have someone to make that motion? Councillor Santori, do I have someone to second that motion?
I will.
Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, thank you very much. Is there any other comments or questions on this? Seeing none. Okay, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Against, if any? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. James and Seth, I think you can click off if you like. You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you want, but I'm sure at this point you have other things to do. So thank you for your time and for your explanation of where we're at. And I'm sure we'll be speaking to you again.
We'd just like to thank council and staff who have helped us through this process and asked some good questions. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
So now we're on to public question period. Ms. McIsaac, have you received any written correspondence?
Nothing has been received.
Okay, Ms. Lucchini, do you have anyone in the room with you up there?
I have no one here for public question period tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move on. Number 4 is communications. 4.1 is unsecured premises, 1425 Tamarack Avenue. And Michelle, or sorry, Ms. McIsaac, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the reporting is to advance for council's consideration the condition of the property located at 1425 Tamarack Avenue. The property has been observed as having multiple unsecured entry points into the dwelling, as well as an unsecured door into the shed. And under the city's fire safety and prevention bylaw, it is a requirement of the property owner to ensure that a dwelling on a property when vacant is secured. And the city's bylaw enforcement officer had observed that there were these entry points to the vacant property. Property owners were put on notice requesting that the building be secured so as to prevent unauthorized access. However, this has not been done by the required date, and therefore the matter is being advanced to council to consider a remedial action order. The city's bylaw enforcement officer further witnessed vagrancy and squatting occurring within the premises, and the RCMP were required to be called out to remove some individuals who had been accessing the dwelling without authorization. So there is a concern to the neighborhood with respect to that sort of activity occurring, and therefore council can impose a remedial action requirement under section 73 of the community charter in order to remedy what is a hazardous condition, and that is being recommended for council's consideration tonight. Because the property is deemed to be vacant and is being accessed by trespassers, it's creating a public safety hazard in the neighborhood, and it's being recommended that council issue a remedial action order requiring the owner to secure the dwelling at 1425 Tamarack Avenue within 7 days. So because the property owner has been provided with some notice to secure the building, recognizing that the property owner lives locally, a very short timeline for compliance is being recommended considering the risk with the vagrancy and trespassing occurring. And so the recommendation is before council for consideration, and we do hope that you will pass the remedial action order requiring the property owner to secure the buildings within 7 days, and failing that, the city would then be positioned to undertake the work by a contractor or by our own crews and bill the property owner for that work.
Okay, do I have someone to make that recommendation? Councillor Santori, do I have someone to second that? Councillor Butler, are there any questions on this matter? Councillor Dobie, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Payson. Ms. McIsaac, has this property ever come forward to us in the past?
Yes, I do believe that council has dealt with this property in past. I can't say definitively if it was for being unsecured or an unsightly premise, but it has definitely been considered by council previously.
Yeah, I thought so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried, thank you. Okay, so now we have proclamations, and there's 4 proclamations before us. The first one is Moose Hide Campaign Day. This is to end the violence against women and children. There's International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia in support of the LGBTQ+ community. There is World Oceans Day with the goal to protect 30% of our oceans by 2030. And the Longest Day of Smiles, which is in support of children born with cleft conditions. And the recommendation is that council proclaim May 12th, 2020 as Moose Hide Campaign Day, May 17th, 2022 as International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, June 8th, 2022 as World Oceans Day, and June 19th, 2022 as Longest Day of Smiles in the City of Trail. And if I made an error and I didn't say May 12th, 2022, I just want to correct that now. So there's 4 proclamations. The recommendation is before you, and what would council like to do with this?
So moved, Robert.
Councillor Kashoni, do I have someone to second? Councillor Butler, did I see your hand go up? Any questions or comments on this? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Against, if any? Carried, thank you. So there's one bylaw before us, and this is the Council Indemnity Bylaw number 2913-2020 for adoption. The recommendation is that the bylaw be adopted, and Ms. McIsaac, would you like to make any comments on this?
Certainly, the bylaw has been to council for first, second, and third readings. It was previously discussed at a Governance and Operations Committee meeting, recognizing that this bylaw does set the annual stipends that is paid to each member of council for your service. As established, the bylaw represents a 2% increase being paid to council as compared to the 2021 stipends, and the bylaw is before you for adoption. It will be retroactive to January 1, 2022, once adopted.
Okay, does someone to make the recommendation, make the motion? So I need someone to make the motion to adopt the bylaw number 2916-2022. So Ms. McIsaac, it seems like no one wants to make the motion to adopt this bylaw. So I'm not quite sure what is happening here.
So if there's been a change of opinion of members of council around the increase in the council stipend, if this bylaw is not adopted, the former bylaw, the Council Indemnity Bylaw number 2901/2021 will stand. And that would mean that the council stipends that were established in 2021 would continue to be paid through 2022. So there would be no increase provided to council as a result.
So as no one is willing, I'll ask once again, does someone else want to move and second this bylaw? Okay, so do we just leave it then? Or do you need a motion of a different kind, Ms. McIsaac?
No, I think it's fine without it being adopted. The bylaw will just be considered incomplete, and the previous bylaw stands.
Okay. I just want to make a note here. All right, so moving forward, council committee reports. Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, you're first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one report for the Trail Historical Society. The minutes are on the reading file. They've been very, very busy doing projects, and we have a new interim archives. The lady that took Sarah's position, acting, her name is Eleanor Morenzi. She's the acting museum and archive manager, and she's got lots of experience, and she's doing.
Sorry, Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, you just cut out a little bit. Are you?
Okay.
Is that the last report you had? You just introduced
Yes,
Eleanor
yes.
as the new director? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Does anyone have any
Thank you.
question? Yeah, you're welcome. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Gattafoni Robinson? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. Councillor Santori, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. Just a few things to report on today's GOC. We had two delegations before us. The first one was the Lower Columbia Initiatives Corporation, which provided a detailed report for the first quarter. Also present was from Metal Tech Alley. And one of the highlights of one of their initiatives that is being put forth through Metal Tech Alley is the EV Battery Recycling Center. They're looking at making Trail a center for the recycling of electronic vehicle batteries. They're in the initial stages of consultation to see what the capacity is required in order to achieve that. It could include current recycling centers such as Retrieve and or KC Recycling, or based on future demand, it is apparent that another standalone competitor could be a viable operation down the road. So that brings us, if that was to come to fruition, it would create some significant economic development as well as jobs for the region. We also had received a report from the Lower Columbia Community Development Team by Jan Morton. Our second delegation was Sergeant Mike Wasinowich to report on first quarter crime results and violations. Good news to report, although slight decline, it was 2% less than the first quarter of 2022. And also the 2022 budget was approved as presented. There was some discussion in terms of Sergeant Wasinowich's future initiatives going forward with the addition of some additional RCMP complement in different positions. That will be discussed either with this council at a later date or a new council after this year's elections. But in the meantime, we did support the 2022 budget as presented and was approved. Also, Robert Baker brought forth a project that was previously approved by council, and that was the complete window replacement at the Trail Memorial Center of the previous library location. We received 3 bids on that project. The successful bidder was Hilltech Construction at a cost of $132,110. Also council was provided with the renewable energy plan commitment brought forth by Chris McIsaac. This presentation was made to council in the past. Council has endorsed and supported this initiative. However, over the course of the next several months till the end of this year, staff will be preparing a comprehensive report back to City Council in terms of cost benefit analysis in terms of having to transition our heating, air conditioning, waste management, and other energy users within the city, including our transportation fleet. With respect to cash grants, we received a report to date on what has been paid out in grants. There was one request for a grant from the Kidney Foundation, the BC Yukon branch, and as per the city's grant policy, there was a request of $500, of which $125 was granted to the Kidney Foundation. And that concludes my GOC report, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Santori? Seeing none. Okay, Councillor Jones, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Payson. I will have a short report tonight as well. I have attended two of the two regional district of Kootenay boundary meetings. One was the curbside pickup meeting held on April 19th. And I also attended a board of directors meeting on April 13th. This past weekend, as I am a director with the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Government, I'm very excited to say that we held our first convention in 3 years. And it went very, very well. It was great to be out there networking and talking to people from other communities and other councillors. And we did a lot of business that weekend. Last weekend, we were able to get 18 resolutions passed, one special resolution. We did numerous workshops. I'm sure all of council would have been interested in most of them. They will be on the AKBLG website. Probably later this week, they'll all get posted, the workshops. I know that Mayor Payson was there and Councillor Paul Butler was there. And it was just so much information to take in a couple of days that I appreciate these workshops being on their website. I think that's it for my my report. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Jones? Okay, Councillor Butler, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. On behalf of Council, I attended the following. On the 21st of April, I attended the NCCDTS AGM, followed by their monthly meeting. And along with yourself and Councillor Jones, I attended over this past weekend the AKBLG meeting in Nelson. And instead of going on, I would just like to say I echo Councillor Jones's comments on the event. It was excellent. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Any questions for Councillor Butler? Seeing none, Councillor Dobie. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. As you know, the market was held on the Easter weekend, and I won't comment on that as Jan Morton attended our governance and ops meeting today, and she gave quite a full report on the great success of the market. And I think they surpassed the attendance of the Christmas market. And there was the Easter egg hunt, there was live chickens there, and I think over 50 tables were there as well. The Hills to Valley Garden Tour, we met last week, and we've now committed to 8 homes running from Roslyn down to Fruitvale, and the format will be the same. And this is the first time we've been together in 3 years as well. The format will be the same as before. You can either go on your own with your map, you can go on your own with your map and also your luncheon ticket. And the luncheon this year is going to be held at the Roslyn Golf Course, or you can go on the bus and for the tour and then the luncheon as well. This morning, myself, as along with Colleen Jones, we both attended this next yeah, remember this the next presentation. I hadn't attended the previous presentation, so I found this one, I don't want to say alarming, but I was surprised at a lot of the things that were brought up. I didn't realize that the Senex Nation, some of these people down in the United States, they were considered extinct. and they had to prove that they weren't extinct, that they were really part of the United States proper as a whole. So what they're really going for now is remediation and wanting to move ahead. And I just want to give a quick side note. We have developed a signpost that's going to go along the walkway on the way from Gyro to Sunningdale, and it's to do with a native species that was very, very precious to the First Nations. And we really want to provide as much protection. This is a very rare flower. I think it's a purplish color. If you're walking down there, you might recognize it. So the official sign will be posted on this Wednesday. But in one of the presentations, they talked about a pure Senex land, and it's outside of or inside of Washington, and it's called a park, but it's not a park in terms of what we think with green space and picnic tables and children's playground. This is a natural park. It's been left in its natural state since the Senex used this a couple of hundred years ago, and they're still using it today. And they get a lot of herbal medications out of there, a lot of foods, and it's a place of contemplation and prayer. And I was really, really impressed and surprised by that. But one of the things they talked about was how important this flower is to their community, to the Senex Nation. And so here we have this flower along the Columbia River that we're trying to protect. And he highlighted the fact that in terms of medicinal purposes, this was a very, very important flower, and it still is in this natural park setting down in Spokane. So that concludes my report, Mayor Payson. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dobie, do you recall prior to COVID, how many homes you had or locations on the garden tour?
I think it's always been 8. 1 year it might have
okay.
been 9, but I think it's pretty well always been 8. It's a little difficult to fit in 9. It kind of makes it tight for the bus schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's great. Any questions for Councillor Dobie? Seeing none. Okay, Councillor Kashoni.
My report is relatively brief. I attended the budget meetings for the operational on the 19th of April, and on the 20th, the capital budget. It was a very interesting meetings. We went through all of the budgets in a very, very, professional way, and went and actually questioned all the sections. And it looks like that we've got a fairly good situation coming up for 2022. I appreciated how they were set out and the job that Reno did in establishing the budgets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kashoni. Any questions for Councillor Kashoni? Okay, and myself, just go through my reports. So I attended the Trail Community Action Team and the Social Housing Committee meetings. We recommitted and asked them to re-engage with a second round of advocacy letters for supportive housing and complex care housing. Complex care housing is a new initiative from the Ministry of Mental Health and Substance Use or Addiction Services, and it's intended to help people who have higher and more complex needs than those that would be found in a social housing or supportive housing environment. So I am currently working on a revised draft letter and working with staff on that. And there's a few changes to the contact list, and we'll be getting that out as soon as we can. Again, just being a small town, it's really important for our community to rally behind the advocacy of having enhanced supports for our most vulnerable population in our community. Had a Trail Health and Environment Committee meeting. Again, the focus is on increasing community engagement at the committee level, refining strategic direction, including the base knowledge for all members. Like many committees, the membership rotates, so it's really important to have that documentation that's clear and concise for new members coming in. And for our community, I just want to remind everyone that it is the summer season, so soil remediation and testing is happening. And so if anyone is interested in having soil testing done at their homes to see what those lead levels are, you can just go online and sign up at thep.ca. So www.thep.ca. I as well attended the AKBLG in Nelson. I echo the sentiments that it was very, very well organized, and it was nice to our first time venturing out, travel close to home, so that was great. The one thing I did do a bit differently than Councillor Jones and Butler is that the Highway 3B or Highway 3 mayors and regional district chairs always tend to meet around this time, and this is a coalition of mayors and our regional district chairs that meet to talk to the government on priorities along the Highway 3 corridor. So what the group was, we reassessed priorities, shifting is needed based on project completion. Regardless of the project advance, the committee is advocating for shoulder widening to improve pedestrian and bike safety and wildlife corridors to be incorporated whenever possible. With respect to our area, there is a request to investigate a rest stop at the top of the Paulson Summit. So that was advanced to put on the priority list. There is a lack of power up there, which always creates some problems, but that was still put on the list to investigate. Other priorities in our area that are on the list are improvements to the northbound passing lane near Brilliant Dam between Castlegar and Nelson, and straightening the S-curves between Salmo and Weimar. Have some good news to report for those who have to travel by car, is that 11 new cell phone towers are being repaired or replaced between Hope and Caramunis. There was some damage with the weather events that happened this year, so there's 11 that will be going in new. And Kootenai Pass, with respect to a cell phone tower there, that is still on the radar, but there is no electricity at the top. So there is a bit of a reluctance from the funders to install that, but we're keeping the pressure on, hoping that we can get some better cell reception on the Kootenai Pass. So just with respect to the rest of the AKBLG, there was, again, lots of relevant sessions, and I always find it interesting to hear them because it just makes it really clear that even though there's a lot of municipalities and areas, we are all dealing with the same problems and working towards them, such as climate change and reconciliation, economic development, and homelessness were the main ones. We did do the resolutions, but I think what a highlight was for me was Keith Baldry, Chief Political Correspondent from Global TV, was our keynote speaker, and he spent the 3 days with us, and it was a very, very engaging discussion with him and presentation on politics in the past during COVID and now moving into the future, which was really exciting. And it was a great conference, and thanks to everyone, including Councillor Jones, who is on the committee that organized that. So any questions of me before we move on? Councillor Jones, go ahead.
The Trail Community Action Team, who exactly is on that?
Oh, I'd have to look up the notes. So that is spearheaded by a couple ladies, Diana Daghofer and a rep from, sorry, the name's just escaping me right now, from Interior Health. And it's a multidisciplinary team. So there's community members, Councillor Butler and I attend. There's Interior Health members. There's representatives from Anchors, from Redone, people with lived experiences. Sheila Adcock sits on the committee. And so it is a wide group of people who are interested. There's also the United Church that sits on that group as well. And I think it is quite an open door committee through the Community Action Group. Any other questions on that? Okay, great. Okay, consent agenda. So we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Report on invoices paid for municipal services from March 1st to 31st, 2022. Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resources, Operations and Rural Development, Provincial Tree Planting Program, and City of Fort St. John extended hour childcare for shift workers. So the recommendation is that the items on the consent agenda be received for information.
So move.
Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, thank you. Do I have someone to second that? Councillor Santori, all in favor? Against, if any? And now, is there anything that needs to be pulled out for further discussion? No. Okay, great. New business, any new business? Oh,
Mayor.
sorry. Go ahead, Colleen.
I wanted to pull out the 7.3, the extended hour childcare for shift workers. I think that's an important one for, especially for our new childcare center that is going in, hopefully, up in Tadnock. I think that we're at the point right now in our lives where we realize that childcare is needed 24/7 and not just, for 8 hours a day. So I would like to pull that one out, please.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually had a question about this because I texted Sue Bach today and I asked her, how long was the plan for the Unicorn Childcare Center to operate? And what she indicated to me was the plan at this point is 4:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is 15.5 hours. So before the meeting, I had asked Ms. McIsaac if there is a barrier to hours that a daycare can offer. And I mean, Ms. McIsaac can speak to that, but it doesn't seem like we are suffering or would be suffering from the same 13-hour each day per child. So I'm not quite sure where that legislation is coming from. Ms. McIsaac, do you want to speak to this?
Well, I think it might be worthwhile for us to refer this correspondence to the Bach and Associates team who are working on the operating model for the Child Care Center in order to determine if in fact there is a common concern. So with that, it might be appropriate for council to pass a motion referring this communication through to Bach and Associates for comment.
Okay.
Okay.
I would be willing to do that. I'll make that motion, please.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jones. And do I have someone to second that motion? Councillor Butler, great. Any other questions or comments on this? No? Okay, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried, perfect. Any new business? Seeing none?
No, I have,
Department-
sorry,
Oh,
I have
sorry.
an item of new business.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kashoni.
Okay, so in this new business section, I am intending now to move a motion of non-confidence in our Mayor, Lisa Payson. If I receive a second, I would like to outline my reasons and provide examples to support my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Now, I'm going to go through this slowly to make sure that I'm very, very clear on this issue. It's not something I really want to do, but it's something that I think is necessary in terms of what occurred. And I'm going to go through it one step at a time. I intend to proceed from the present to the past, and as such, I reference the March 28th, 2022 regular council meeting where Mayor Payson chose to make an issue of my assistance to Councillor Jones, where I provided information and data on the regional district position. She clearly noted in previous meetings that she was interested in filling. At the time, she asked for my help. There were no others interested in the position, so I took my time to organize her pending takeover of the position to be as smooth as possible, as it is a very large portfolio. The projects totaling now almost $68 million are required to be overseen. Mayor Payson portrayed my assistance as a negative rather than as a positive step. She suggested it was inappropriate for us to meet. The transition from one chair to another is critical, and I believe she sought to embarrass both myself and Councillor Jones. As the meeting proceeded, Councillor Butler was nominated, and at that point I told and informed the meeting that if I had known that he was interested, I would have provided him with the same information that I provided Councillor Jones. At a previous meeting, Councillor Santori moved, nominated, and Councillor Butler seconded Councillor Jones to be the primary regional district rep. So I naturally assumed they were in agreement. They then chose, along with Mayor Payson, to vote against Councillor Jones. But now I find out that Councillor Butler did not do so in the earlier part of the meeting, which now is to me a great concern, as Mayor Payson is the regional district alternate representative. I say this because Councillor Jones, as the primary representative, will need support from the alternate in order to effectively handle such a difficult portfolio. Mayor Paisley's actions puts into questions, at least in my mind, whether or not she will be able to or willing to support Councillor Jones in her new position. The next major incident occurred on March 28th, 2022 at the regular council meeting close to the end of the meeting, where Councillor Santori made a number of allegations and berated several other members of council. In this particular incident, Mayor Paisley did nothing to stop the assault. I call it an assault because that's how I perceive it. And in fact, some of the items that he referenced, I believe, were part of a closed council discussion and should not have been brought forward in an open meeting. During the meeting when this incident occurred, a point of order was called twice. And I suggested that it was outrageous that Councillor Santori be allowed to make these kinds of statements. However, Mayor Paisley actually allowed this to continue and seemed not to be concerned at all with one councillor making allegations and berating other councillors. Councillor Jones clicked out in the meeting, then Councillor Dobie, then me, and I'm not sure how it actually ended, but I had no intention of staying any longer to be dealt with in that matter by Councillor Santori. And seeing that Mayor Paisley was not going to do anything, I left. This lack of control of meetings has been an ongoing situation that has severely damaged the relationships between council members. The next issue was at the June 28th regular council meeting where Mayor Paisley made a number of allegations and dire predictions that never came to be true. I would ask that citizens watch that particular meeting from where she starts her report, and it is once again an assault on the character and behavior of a council member. At no time did she raise the issue with me, but chose to raise it in a public once again, I believe to embarrass and discredit me. It centers on an email, but mostly it centers on the report she produced on June the 23rd, 2021, which makes these allegations is now a public document. I will reference some of the allegations and dire predictions again that she makes that never came true. This goes directly to her credibility when she can make these kinds of statements and not take responsibility when they are shown to be inaccurate. Specifically on the January 19th, 2020 East End Committee, where she suggests and actually states, I witnessed Councillor Kashoni being aggressive, rude, and condescending to staff. He was disruptive, bullying, and interrupting, and he was badgering staff. He did not comply with the rules of order when speaking. I found it very disturbing and embarrassing to witness the behavior. She mentions that the chair of the regional district, who is no longer chair, by the way, was considering removing me from all RDKB committees. In this report, she provides options, and one of them, of course, is to remove me as a representative to the regional district. And this is not the first time she suggested this. I can honestly say that I have not received any support at all from Mayor Paisley as the primary representative to the regional district. In fact, she has done everything, I believe, to undermine me. It is interesting to note that at that January 19th meeting, that I was then elected to be the representative of the Transit Committee, dealing with transit covering from Nelson to Castlegar to Trail. And subsequently, at the next solid waste meeting, I was elected vice chair of the Solid Waste Committee, where I was last year. When the new chair of the board, subsequently, in the next Solid Waste Committee, I was elected vice chair of the Solid Waste Committee. I was never taken off any committees and maintained my chair of the Liquid Waste Committee and of the Utilities Committee. I served on all of the East End committees and of course on the Solid Waste Committee where I was last year. With the new chair of the board who took over in November, I was reappointed to all of those committees and maintained my committee structures that deal with the largest budgeted sections of the regional district. When I stepped down on March 31st, 2022, Councillor Jones has stepped into most of the positions that I held, except for the chairs, which I am very pleased to see that she's on all of those committees. The 2020, June 23rd, 2021 report is a public document, and besides watching the June 28th, 2021 meeting, it would be available for the citizens of Trail to read. The last major issue, and I'll conclude quickly, which began, I believe, on January 28th, 2021, and continues to this day, is the removal of me from every committee and acting mayor position that Mayor Payson could possibly control. I was removed from these committees and positions well before I was found in breach of the code of conduct. This is very concerning because it would appear that Mayor Payson has differing positions depending on council members. Even before I was investigated, I was removed from the committees. However, when Mayor Payson and Councillor Santori had complaints filed against them, they never stepped down or were taken off any committees. Not even after they were both found in breach of the council code of conduct, nothing was done. Mayor Payson continues on all of her committees, and Councillor Santori still maintains the Governments and Operations Committee chair, which he has held since 2019. This seems to me to be discriminatory in the way I've been treated compared to the treatment of others.
Councillor Kashoni, you are on mute. The last word we heard from you was others, compared to others.
Oh, sorry.
Call for vote.
And compared to treatment of others on council.
Sorry,
list-
Councillor Dobie, what did you just say?
I thought he was finished and I just said, let's call for vote. He's made
The
his
hang on,
things
one
listed
second. I
above
don't
are
think
specific
he's-
to my motion, but they're not all inclusive. Thank you for allowing me to express my concerns and present my arguments for the motion of non-confidence in Mayor Lisa Payson. And I reserve the right to close if anyone else speaks as per Robert's Rules of Order in the presentation and process of motions.
Ms. McIsaac, you had your hand up.
Ethan, I'm not sure where to begin. My understanding of a vote of, or a motion of non-confidence would suggest that those voting in favor would find that you were not deemed fit to serve in the position of mayor. I am unclear by Councillor Kashoni's intent with bringing this forward, and I don't have the experience to know what sort of procedural fairness should have been provided, if any. I'm not a legal expert. Without any sort of advance notice of this being brought forward, it is impossible for staff to consider what the effects of this motion might be if successfully passed, nor to provide you with any professional advice around the steps that are being taken here. I don't know if some long-serving council members, perhaps Councillor Santori, would have any information or advice to share with respect to a non-confidence motion such as this. But I would say it would be inappropriate without some further background work being done for council to vote on such a motion off the floor without any sort of advance preparation or procedural fairness provided.
So Councillor Santori, you're the longstanding councillor. So I don't know if you have anything from a procedural standpoint to provide context around this.
Well, I have limited knowledge other than the fact that a councillor or a mayor cannot. There are only certain circumstances where a mayor or a councillor can be removed from a council. I don't know what Robert's intent is here and what a vote of non-confidence, whether justified or not, serves. So once again, I have no idea what Robert's intent is here. I've got nothing I can add. I don't think of any value, to be honest with you. I mean, well, I'm not going to get into it. It's not worth my breath, really. But okay, now what do we do?
Well, the motion's been on the table and it's been seconded.
I didn't hear what's the motion?
The motion is a motion of non-confidence in Mayor Payson. Quite simple. Not asking for anything to be done. We're asked that's my position. My position, I don't have any confidence in Mayor Payson. And I outlined my points quite clearly.
So I guess my question is, anybody can do that with respect to any councillor then, right, Robert?
Oh, absolutely. No problem at all.
So at the next council meeting, if I want to put in a vote.
Well, I don't want to get into discussion with you, Sandy. Sorry. If you want to talk to the motion, that's different. Thank you.
I am.
I don't want to get into discussion with you. I had enough of it at the last meeting. Thank you.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Councillor Jones?
I'm wondering, yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm wondering what the next step is going to be, but clearly nobody knows.
You can file another complaint for 50 grand.
Okay, so let's stay on track here. Councillor Dobie?
Thank you, Mayor Payson. So right now, it's my understanding that Councillor Kashoni has passed a motion based on his opinion and his feelings towards the leadership of this council. That doesn't necessarily mean, he didn't say he's asking for her to step down or anything like that. He's just putting out a statement to support how he feels with the leadership towards council as a whole. And he's spoke very clearly to that. So to me, we have a motion on the floor where we haven't asked for any results, any further action. It's just based on opinions. So I can't understand why we can't call for vote on that motion.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that's a little bit of the point, Councillor Dobie, that Ms. McIsaac was trying to say. And if you recall, when council has discussed sanctions, that procedural fairness needs to occur within that, right? And so this is kind of along the same lines. And I think Ms. McIsaac has just said that she's unsure of the process and if this is even kind of allowed as advanced off the floor like this. So I understand the desire of 4 councillors who have
Point of order.
well, I think it's pretty clear. I understand the desire here.
Like that has got us where we are today. So
No,
I would say point of order.
I disagree with you. So it has been advanced, but I am unsure if advancing without knowing the process is necessarily helpful.
There's no process. It's just a straightforward vote. It has nothing to do with sanctions. It's just based on his opinion, what he's described, and what his feelings are. And we don't expect there's anything further going to come out of this.
No,
But I think council is allowed to express their opinion and put it to motion if they want. I don't think it requires any further investigation. We don't need a committee to come in here and look at this. We don't need to go through a legal process. This is our opinion of 4 councillors. We put the motion on the floor.
Of 4 councillors, yet I just got chastised by
No, you
Counselor
mentioned that.
Jones
You
for
mentioned
saying,
that.
so if it wasn't 4 counselors, then why did you just say 4 counselors?
Because you just said. it
Ms.
before me.
But she just said it wasn't right and you chose to repeat me, right?
No,
Okay,
I-
so
I
Just
chose
point
to
of
use
order.
your
Ms.
words.
McIsaac,
This is a
Can
discussion.
you please
here.
take-
Ms. Isaac
can you
has nothing to
please
do with it
take-
either.
can you
This is
please-
just a strictly a motion. It's a motion that's been seconded and can be voted on. We're not asking for you to resign. We're just not asking for any other actions. What we're doing, we're not sanctioning anybody. We're simply saying, and I'm simply saying when my motion is that I have no confidence in you. Now, others have said that already before, that they have no confidence in you. So just make sure you understand that. I don't expect Michelle to do anything, nothing at all.
Okay.
I
I
expect the
think
motion.
there's, I
to
think
be
there's
voted on.
governance and procedural fairness that you need to follow around this table.
No,
So Counselor Santori, I don't know if you want to go first and then Ms.
Yeah, I
McIsaac.
know. I just want to put an end to this. I mean, there's no secret here, Lisa. Counselor Kashoni, Counselor Jones, and Counselor Gattafoni Robinson, and Counselor Doby don't agree with you. That's nothing new that started from the day you got elected to today. So if it gives them personal satisfaction to put it on the record that they dislike you and they don't like the way you're being the mayor, then let it be. It's not going to be any new news to any new people. It might make a headline, it might not, but it's not new to the citizens of Trail. So I'm going to call question on the motion and let's get this over with so we can get on with our life, please.
Ms.
no
McIsaac,
secret.
before we just go, did you have anything else to say?
Well,
No, in all
That's my
fairness.
input. With all due respect, Mayor Payson, I've heard quite clearly that my input isn't warranted or welcomed from select members of council. They feel they have the expertise to know what a motion of non-confidence entails, and as such, I have nothing further to add.
no, let's just get on with life, folks.
Okay. Counselor Jones, did you have a comment?
Question was called.
No, I was just going to, what's it called? Make an amendment to the vote, to the motion, I guess. I wanted to refer it to staff to investigate the process of a vote of non-confidence.
Counselor Santori?
With all due respect, Colleen, that won't achieve anything. It really won't. There is no provision to sanction the mayor or a counselor for that matter. As much as I would love to sanction Counselor Kashoni for illegally taping a meeting, I can't do that.
once again, point of order, here's something else. I never told you I taped the meeting, nor did I say that at any time, but this is totally out of order. It doesn't need to be. The motion was called, the question was called, and we should be
Fine.
going to a vote. And as to Michelle, I never said anything about not wanting your input. I'm simply saying that we have a motion, we have a seconder. You spoke, that's fine. People agree with you, don't agree with you, that's fine.
Mayor Payson.
Now we're asking
Yep.
for a vote.
Counselor Santori, go ahead.
Mayor Payson, let's just go to the vote.
Yep.
It's nothing is going to change. They
No,
don't
okay.
like you. They don't like me. So be it. Let life get on. We got 6 months to an election and it'll.
Okay,
what happens
so the
happens.
question's been called. All in favor?
No. I have a question on the motion, though.
Okay, go ahead.
The question on the motion is, there is a parliamentary process here that needs to be followed, and I don't know what it is, and I'm not willing to, well, I guess I just won't vote. Because there's ramifications from this vote of non-confidence. It's not something you just throw out there and let it go. And I think it's a bad move for council to support this until we know what they are.
All we're doing is.
Counselor or Ms. McIsaac, go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that a council member cannot abstain from voting. So Counselor Jones, if you don't support the motion of non-confidence, or if you feel further information is required by not voting in any way, either in favor or opposed. Your vote would be recorded as if in favor. So you would have to specifically oppose the motion if the vote is called.
Okay, I'm not going to do that.
Counselor Santori?
I just want to know, I get what Robert's motion is, but let's talk about the public good here. All we're going to do is we're going to waste more staff time, more staff resources. We're going to involve more legal counsel if we go down a road of some sort of hypothetical parliamentary process, which again does not exist with respect to a sanction or removal of a mayor or councillor, even though you didn't ask that. So why do we want to continue to add to the total by bringing in third persons? Our staff have got enough to do. We have a new CAO coming on board. Could we just move on until October, please? Aren't you guys getting tired of this crap? Just pass the motion. You hate Lisa, you hate me. For the record, there it is. Let's go. I'm hungry.
Okay, so the motion is on the floor. All in favor? Against, if any?
There we go. Motion to adjourn.
Carried. Awesome. Nope, we've got one more thing going on here. Department reports. 9.1, bylaw enforcement department. Oh, actually, I should ask, is there any other new business aside from that? Okay, none. Department reports. 9.1, bylaw enforcement department, March 2022. Recommendation is that this report be received for information.
So move.
Okay, Counselor Santori, second by
I'll second it.
Counselor Butler. Did you have your hand up there? If not, Counselor Jones. Okay, go for it. Okay,
Adjourn.
all in favor?
Right.
Against, if any? Carried. All right, and we move for adjournment at 7:11. Thank you. Have a nice evening, everyone.